Welcome to another webinar. Thank you so much for attending. Today we have a very interesting topic that I believe is very relevant because we get inundated with content every single day. So why don't we actually create a strategy around our content and specifically on how to engage with other businesses, other corporations, right? So today we're going to talk about strategies for business to business engagement. Okay, go ahead and let's get started. So first things first, as usual, make sure that you are connected with us, you're following us, so we can always make sure that you receive the invitations to these type of webinars. Our next event is going to be in 2 weeks. Alrighty, so what are we going to go over today? Today, I decided to divide the strategies for B2B engagement, for content strategies, in 3 different areas. Number 1, we're going to go over content trends, right? Like what type of content you should be creating. Number 2 is storytelling techniques. Because at the end of the day, when you are posting content, especially in the B2B arena, it's very different than for consumers, right? Consumer type of content, it's quicker. You have to be changing constantly. So there's really not much, not that there's not much thought that goes through it, but it's simply something where you don't have to develop so much content on it, right? Because it's something trendy that it next week needs to change, right? That's kind of how consumer content is. But for business to business, it's something a little bit more serious. People don't have the time to be reading content. So you want to make sure that the type of content that you're posting is content that's going to be very relevant to your target audience and that they're going to be engaged with it, right? And then the next one, we're going to talk about the emerging channels. So we're going to talk about kind of like the top channels where you need to focus right now, but then also what other channels you should be considering. Okay? All right. So I have a question already. So it says, how do advanced content marketing strategies resonate with B2B audiences? Okay. So basically, when you're thinking about your content for a business to business audience, you need to really understand what is their pain point, right? Like what are they struggling? What's their challenge right now? Now, what makes content strategy for B2B a little bit more complicated than the consumer is that you're not necessarily talking to the end user, right? You're first probably going to be talking to either the assistant or the buyer assistant that's collecting the information or collecting vendors. So their challenge is to make sure that they find the right vendor for their product. But then you have the project manager that's going to be sorting through all of those vendors and trying to choose like the top 2 or 3 to go and bring them to upper management. So their goal is to really make a good decision on choosing the right vendors for that upper management. So in that case, they're going to be collecting more information where they want to make sure that the services are going to be covered, right? Like every single aspect is going to be covered within the price budget that they have in mind. And then, because they want to look good to their boss, right? And then you have upper management making the decision. So their goal and their pain point and their challenge is going to be very different than the project manager and then the assistant. So as you can see, each stage of your content is going to be read by different people. So you can take an approach where you're creating content specifically for each one of those positions, which you should, but also create content that is talking to all 3 of them. So you have to find that common denominator as well. Okay, so hopefully that helps you. So let's go ahead and go with the first one. So what are the content trends right now out in the market? So the first one we're going to talk about is personalization. Oops, there you go. Personalization, and I'm talking about personalization at scale. Now, what do I mean when I say at scale? So when you're thinking about your content, right now, again, we're inundated with content so much that it gets really challenging to just post something and make sure that the person is going to see it right away the moment you post it. Algorithm is going to show the content to you at a different time that's going to show it to me. Okay? Oh, I have another question. Is this pre-recorded? Yes. Let me see. No, it's not pre-recorded. Right now we're live, but it's going to be recorded and posted for later for people that can join this time. Okay? All right. So the personalization and scale, like I was saying. So basically what we want to do here is we want to make sure that we're leveraging data, like we're leveraging the knowledge on like what time our audience is looking at our content, depending on when we post it, but also leveraging AI, right, on creating and personalizing the content to that specific audience. Nowadays, thanks to AI, you can literally set it up where if I go to a web page, that web page is going to change the way it's showing content to me versus the way it's showing content to you. So that level of personalization is something that we didn't have in the past. But it's something that is becoming more readily available, and it's something that is going to be trending in the future because, again, we are inundated with content every single day. And just think about yourself, how much content you receive every single day, not only when you are on a social media platform, just think about your inbox, how many emails you get, right? So that personalization is going to become crucial, and you can scale that up by using technology, leveraging AI, leveraging softwares that are already available in the market. The number 2 content trend, it's basically content experience, right? Again, by just creating content, just posting content for the sake of posting because everybody else is doing, you're not going to be able to engage with your audience. What you really want to be able to do is you want to create an experience as well on how to, and this is a different strategies as the personalization, right? So with the content experience, you're creating an experience around your content. So think about running quizzes or polls and things like of that nature, or perhaps posting one short video and asking a questions for the person to actually take action. This is something that you can use in B2B, especially if you are talking about a specific technical aspects of a product, right? So you can start sharing the technical, like the generic technical aspect, and then you can end that video or that post by saying, this is going to depend on your industry or on your type of use. Like what use are you going to be doing? Are you going to use this for A, B, or C, right? And people can vote. And that way, you can engage with your audience. The more engagement you get, the more your content is going to show to more people. So it's kind of like a win-win, right? Because you're engaging with your audience. You get to learn what resonates with them. And at the same time, you are actually getting more points with your social media, and you're getting shown to more people as well. All right, so now the third one we have is video content, right? So video content, I feel like if you're just getting into creating video or visual content, you're a little bit late in the game, right? So like content video keeps going into the rise. They say marketers ruin everything because the moment we see a trend, we just take on it. Well, I'm glad we're putting this video together because yes, that's what we do. So we want to make sure that we stay on trend on what people like so you can stand out from your competitors. And again, trends most of the time have a very short period of time. So video is that trend that's been staying for the longest, especially, but it has been changing, right? Especially in social media. Now, video is a trend that it's evolving every single year. Yeah, it used to be where you will create these long, how-to videos, and you were set, but it will take a lot of work to create a 10-minute video. But who's sitting through that video? Nobody, right? So now you have to create short form videos, or short, like, live stream videos. Like, for example, this one is a live stream. We post it out online. We can interact with people, like, answering questions. So it goes quickly, but it's engaging, right? And then the short-term videos, obviously, with TikTok and now Instagram Reels, they keep increasing, right? People want to be able to consume content quickly and then move on to the next thing. So for B2B, that becomes very challenging because you're thinking about something very technical, right? Like, how can you create something so technical, a short form video? Well, I want you to challenge your mindset on that and think about creating short form videos for case studies, right? So you can actually, instead of doing like one post, split that one post about that case study in like 10 social media posts where you're just giving a snippet of, like, this is what happened, stay tuned, and then you keep telling the story and people stay engaged with your social media for a longer time. Okay, so video, I should have put short form video content. Okay, so the next trend in content is voice search. I mean, honestly, if we were in a live audience, I would be like, by the show of hands, how many of you are using Alexa or some sort of voice assistant? Now it's becoming more and more common. Like, honestly, sometimes I call restaurants, like, to make reservations. Yes, a little bit old school. And I get like an automated AI answering the phone, taking my reservation. So voice search is in the rise, with smart speakers, with all kinds of voice activated devices, like even on our cars now. So what this means to you and for your content strategy is that you need to start focusing on conversational keywords, because now people are not typing the least amount of words on Google, even though on Google you still use like long tail keywords, which is 2 or 3 words for one keyword. But on voice search, you're thinking about a conversational keyword. So it's an even longer form of a keyword. You're using different phrases, or just think about the natural way you will ask this to Alexa. That's kind of like how it should be. And then lastly, sustainability. Now with AI, ethical marketing is also becoming very important. So make sure that you are not, one, if you're using any form of AI, don't copy paste to create content. Don't copy paste. Always use it as an inspiration and then like draft your own. But when I'm talking about sustainability and ethical marketing, I'm also talking about the rise of using the environmental causes or even social causes to drive your marketing as well. Like millennials, I feel like it was a generation that started choosing products that were giving back, right? Like, and there was a whole trend about like 10% of our profits go to these social cause, right? Well, that's still increasing, but now it's not only social causes, but a lot of environmental causes. So in your content, if your company is doing any sort of environment, is supporting any kind of social issues, I will highly recommend that you actually use that in your content as well. Okay. All right. So now that we went over the content trends, let's go and let's review what kind of techniques you can use to actually, there we go, to actually connect with your audience, right? Because at the end of the day, you can create this beautiful content, but if it's not connecting, it's kind of like waste of time, in my opinion. Number 1, we want to make your story human. In B2B, it becomes so I guess, inhuman, right? Like there's no emotions in the content. It becomes too diplomatic, right? And like, I mean, there's the whole, like, there's even trends that talks about, how do I say this in corporate lingo? And then you have like the corporate lingo version of it. Well, I want you to actually do the opposite, right? Be a little bit more upfront. Talk to the other human that's sitting on the other side of the desk, right? Because people are still people and they like to do business with people. So focus on that and using personal quotes, personal anecdotes, like even when you're sharing case studies, talk about the people that was making those decisions, right? Like what were they going through? Why was this a challenge? When, if you're talking about a specific product or a piece of equipment, right? Talk about the people that was using that equipment. In other words, make your story more human. That's going to increase the engagement in your content, in any kind of content that you post, be on your blog, on your social media platforms, or if you're going to be releasing press releases or something like that. When you are making an emotional connection with the person behind the screen, you are not only going to increase the engagement, but you're also going to increase the conversion rate. People are going to take action because, again, they're going to see the human side inside that corporation. Because, I mean, how many of us, we look at a corporation and the first thing we're thinking is like, they don't care, right? I'm just a number for them. Well, change the narrative. Make sure that you are adding the human element into your stories. Next, before and after. When you're telling a story, specifically for case studies, which we all know in B2B is extremely important to have case studies as part of your content strategy. When you're telling your case studies, you have to very clearly show the before, the situation they were going through, what were they lacking, and then show the superhero. But in this case, don't make the superhero about you. Okay, let's avoid being the narcissist here. And instead, make the customer the superhero. Make them the ones that make the great decision to save their company and hire you to bring this solution to the company. And that's when you showcase the after. But again, you don't make it about you, you make it about them. That storytelling technique is going to get you better engagement because number one, it's not going to show like you're trying to push a product, but instead you're really telling a story about, how amazing your client was and what drove that person, your customer, to make that decision. Because guess what? The person that's reading that case study is going through the same questions, trying to make the decision. So if you're already telling them like, hey, this other customer made this decision as well, and look how great it went for them, it's going to be easier for them to make the same decision too. So it's a little bit of a different type of before and after. Because typically the before and after is like, this is how it looked before and this is how it looked after, after we came in. No. Make them the superhero and show kind of like their process to make that decision, right? And now, lastly, create a narrative arc, right? Kind of like a little twing, like an arc, right? So basically, it goes a little bit tied in with the before and after, right? So in the before, you're telling the beginning of the story. Just think of it as telling a fairy tale story, right? So you have a very clear beginning of where that customer was, but then you're forming this little arc where you're going into the middle of the story. Now, in the middle of the story is when you are presenting part of the challenge, but also that aha moment where they're like, oh my God, I need this solution, right? And what was that aha moment for your customer? That made them move to implement your solution or your product or your service. right? So make sure that when you conclude, right, like at the end of the arc, you're showing all the great benefits that this customer got to enjoy when they when they experience your services. And make sure that it becomes very memorable, right? Okay. And now lastly, we are going to go with the emerging channels. All right. Emerging channels. First, the obvious ones. There you go. LinkedIn articles. Okay, so if you're not using this powerful tool that's already available, and it's free, honestly, on LinkedIn, you're wasting a lot of money, honestly. If you're posting blogs on your website, make sure that you're also creating a mini version of that blog on LinkedIn and posting that as an article with links to your site. The beauty of this is that you can even create summaries of multiple blogs, post them as one article with links to multiple blogs within your site. So it's very versatile, and it's a really great way of organically drive traffic to your site. This also helps you with your search engine optimization, by the way, because you're able to put external links, right? Like links to your site. But if you're using the keywords with the link to your site, it's going to increase your ranking as well. So next we have podcasts. And I know what you're thinking, Patricia, I don't want to create another podcast. And that's okay. I agree with you. There's so many podcasts out there. Some of them charge you to be there, but some of them are not going to be charging you. So I recommend that you find a way to get those interviews for your company or for someone within your team. Honestly, you don't necessarily have to look for a podcast that's going to talk about a specific product. Make sure you are looking for podcasts within the industry, but you can be talking about related topics. Like, for example, you can be talking about leadership. You can be talking about, career paths and things like that, which will be very easy for you to get those type of podcasts. But what that's creating is, number one, backlinks to your website from a reputable company. But number two is also creating an opportunity for you to share and talk about your company and the benefits of your company without being pushy or being a salesperson, right? Because throughout the content, you can just throw things like, in the company, you can talk about the leadership and all of that, but you are going to have an opportunity to introduce the company. And that's where you can always highlight a specific message or a specific product that you're going to want to highlight on that specific podcast. What I also recommend is that when you are creating this podcast or when you're going and attending podcasts, make sure that you talk to the person and you ask them to share the raw video shoot or whatever it is that they're going to be sharing. Some podcasts do video, but some podcasts also only do audio. Just try to get that material so you can create a blog and content around that podcast in your website as well. Because that's going to add more content, but more credibility in your site. Okay? All right, next we have webinars. So webinars is a great way of really positioning your company and positioning yourself as an industry leader, because you're talking about what you love to do, what you're already good at, and what you already offer to your service, to your clients, right? Like in our agency, we offer content strategies, part of our services, right? So that's why for me, it's very easy to talk about it because I do this every single day, right? So if you need help, let me know. That was my 2 seconds of my sales speech. But a very good emerging channel are virtual conferences. Virtual conferences became very popular after COVID. But people are kind of like leaving them behind. However, they're a great way to launch new products. So instead of you sending an email and running a Google ad campaign and things like that to showcase a new product that you're launching, you could actually create a virtual conference. And there's a lot of organizations that can help you with that. If you need some referrals, just comment and I'll send you a private message with some of the companies that we've helped our clients with. But virtual conferences is going to vary a lot based on your budget, of course, and the size, like how many people you think are going to attend, right? The beauty of this is that you're going to have a captive audience in that virtual conference because you can send out like an email blast, run a whole campaign, but instead of promoting the product itself, you're inviting people to this virtual conference that can last anywhere from like 1 hour to like half a day. And people can even have the opportunity to do networking within each other. So it's a really great opportunity to add value, but also push your product and talk about your product. Talk about your product a lot because people are going to be able to ask questions about your product. You're going to be able to do a demo. Instead of doing the demo one-on-one to one person, you can demo the product to multiple people. So there's a lot of great advantages of creating a virtual conference, especially as part of your go-to-market campaign when you are launching a new product. Okay. And then we talked about interactive content in the past, but it is an emerging channel because now there are tools that actually create either, interactive quizzes or even like calculators that help companies calculate not only, your mortgage payment online, but there's like calculators that can help. You can create a calculator to, let's say, choose the right size of a pipe, or the right size for a specific tool within the equipment or something like that. And people just submit the information and the calculator will give them the result. And then, but for you, the big win is that for them to be able to use that, they have to submit either their email address or something like that for them to be able to use that calculator. Another one could be creating infographics, but that changes depending on their response, right? So, like for example, you can be showing a little bit of a specific oil tool, for example. And this is an example from a client. And then if they use it for, offshore or onshore, they click on which one they're going to be using it. And then for offshore, you show a specific infographic, or for onshore, you show a different one. But for them to get that information, again, you want to collect their email address and you want to be able to have them interact with your company, but at the same time provide their information so you can start nurturing them with more valuable content, right? Again, you don't want to create content just for the sake of creating content. Make sure that it's always something valuable for your audience and for your prospect audience, customer. And then lastly, we have private community platforms. So think about Slack, for example. A lot of companies are using Slack nowadays. Then there's also international companies use WhatsApp for business. There you can create specific groups where you can actually start posting private content only to the people that are on those groups. So for example, if you don't want, because people is hesitant about sharing their email address on those interactive content platforms, and if you decide to, hey, join our Slack channel where we share more content like this one, where you're going to be able to get access to free tools that are exclusive for people in this channel, then people start subscribing in this platform. And then in this, like a Slack or WhatsApp for business, you can share a specific content to that network. You're going to have way more engagement because again, it's a very focused audience that's going to be getting that content for you. And you are going to be able to also get more referrals even through that group of people you're building that community, right? So using these channels, especially like Slack, you are going to be able to connect with your audience at a different level, but become that trusted advisor where they are not even thinking about where should I go, they just go straight to the channel to search or ask for the product or the questions that they have for the specific product that you offer, because you're going to be top of mind. you're nurturing that lead in a way that it doesn't feel that you're trying to sell, but instead you're really becoming that trusted advisor. It's a consultative type of selling, right? So it's a very different approach that the used car salesman approach, right? Here you want to make sure you connect with your audience and you are giving them value. Okay, and there we have it, right on time, 30 minutes. That's my limit always. I try to do it in less time, but oh well. So make sure that you're connected with us, and if you need any help with your content strategy, we do offer like a free 15 to 30-minute consultation to just kind of like analyze what you have and see if we can add value to you, or kind of like what we recommend for you to do. So make sure you can book that appointment. Just go to my LinkedIn and follow the link. Thank you all for joining, and I hope to see you next time.